Good evening, everybody. This is your host, Huge Pop from the Huge Pop Wrestling Podcast, and we are blessed with another guest. This guest is a man that used to wrestle in the Universal Wrestling Federation. He was part of one half of Wet and Wild with Steve Ray. He also was in the No Holds Barred with Hulk Hogan, where he got noticed by WWF. Please welcome to the show, Rick Allen, better known as ring name Sonny Beach. How you doing today, sir?
Doing great. Thank you for having me.
Thank you for coming on board. As I was telling you behind the scenes that I do foster care, and I want to get these questions out of the way so we can get to your to wrestling. They want to ask you questions, so we have dinners together. They asked me what I'm going to do. I said, "Well, I'm interviewing a wrestler. Well, can we ask them some questions?" I said, "Sure." So they're not they're just questions from kids. All right.
Not a problem.
What's your favorite food?
I like seafood.
Seafood. Okay. Does pineapple belong on your pizza if you eat it?
No.
Okay. What's your favorite animal?
I like deer and I like horses.
All right. Favorite place to visit?
Wow, there's so many of them. When I was wrestling, Tokyo, Japan was great. With my family, I like going to Italy, Tuscany in Italy. I have a condo down in Boca Raton on the beach. I like going there for some downtime. And where I live out in Northport, Long Island, and the Hamptons in Long Island, beautiful places. But, there's so many beautiful places around the country and around the world. I haven't been able to see all of them, but God's blessed me with the wrestling, and I got to travel the whole world, and I got to see a lot of really cool places that if I wasn't wrestling, I would have never got to see. So I'm very blessed to, been a world traveler, so to speak.
Awesome. Yeah. What's your favorite hobby?
Favorite hobby is spending time with my family and my grandkids.
Absolutely. I agree. My son works on the same campus with us, and we have a 6-year-old granddaughter and a 3-year-old grandson, and plus we have 2 up in Michigan. So every time I get to hang with those guys, it just brings joy to my heart. So
if you don't have family, you have nothing. So
absolutely, 100%. Do you watch wrestling today?
Once in a while, not too much anymore. It's changed since I've been in the business. I got out in around 2000. I still do some autograph signings and some conventions and personal appearances and fundraising and stuff, but I really don't go to any matches, or I don't really watch it on TV too much.
Okay. And your favorite sports team? You're from New York, so I bet I know.
Well, the Yankees, my favorite baseball team. I like the Jets. I've been a long-suffering Jet fan since I moved to New York. So those are 2 of my favorite teams. I would say the Jets and the Yankees.
All right, the Jets play tonight, don't they?
They're playing right now. So
all right, let's get going so you can watch the last half.
Well, they were winning 7-6 when I left to come up here. So
awesome. I'm a Detroit Lions fan, so that game last night.
Well, they got a good win yesterday.
Yeah, that was a good one. So
overtime.
Yes, sir. I'll get to those later. So about your career. So how did you first get into professional wrestling, and what drew you to the sport?
What drew me to the sport was I moved from Chicago when I was 8 years old to Jacksonville, Florida, between 8 and 9 years old. And I was just at that point where I was growing out of cartoons on Saturday mornings. And down there, Championship Wrestling from Florida was on TV. I had a really nice time slot around 11 or 12 o'clock in the afternoon. It was an hour show. And I lived about maybe 10 minutes from the Jacksonville Coliseum at the time. And they would have professional wrestling every Thursday night there. And Don Curtis was one of the promoters for Eddie Graham, and he would promote the Jacksonville territory, the area up there. He would do the North Florida circuit. So Eddie Graham's daughter, Lisa Curtis, we went to high school together. We grew up together. So I always knew, his daughter, and I would go to the shows. And I was a huge Dusty Rhodes, Kevin Sullivan fan, the Briscoe brothers, Mike Graham, Steve Kern. I just loved that. Stan Hansen, just that whole clique back then, Florida Championship Wrestling, it was Harley Race, world champion. And then, 6 o'clock, Superstation came on from Atlanta, Georgia, so Georgia Championship. So I was getting the best of both worlds. And then once in a while we get IWA, I guess, Sheik had his territory. You get to see some stuff from Michigan. And once in a while you would catch like WWF, it was like, Worldwide Wrestling Federation. You'd get a couple matches from MSG like every month or every other month if you catch it right, and it was on late at night. So I got to see, a lot of wrestling, and I just fell in love with it. That's how I got started.
Awesome, man. You named some names on there, man, and it's been a year. You mentioned Kevin Sullivan. One of the Briscoe brothers. Uh, you mentioned Kevin Sullivan, Alpha. You know,
Yeah, very good friends of mine. Kevin was a very dear friend of mine, and we went on a bunch of overseas tours together. About a year and a half ago, he was in New York. I took him to dinner with me over by my house, and every time we would do autograph signings. I own a security guard company up here, and I made sure he would have shirts. And when COVID was here, I would give him some masks. My company had APB masks for
nice.
COVID and stuff. So,
Yeah.
I mean, all the guys. I mean, out of all the guys that passed, I was probably pretty close to Kevin, more so than Alpha. I mean, I was on overseas tours with Alpha, and I worked a lot of independent shows with Alpha, with IWA, and up here in New York for Mr. Haiti and SD Jones, and all the guys who worked together after they leave WWF. And I promoted some, independent shows up here in New York and New Jersey, and a lot of these guys, former WWF guys, work for me a lot.
Yeah, yeah. Before you became a pro wrestler, I think you were an amateur wrestler at one time.
Yeah, I was in high school wrestling, and I had scholarships to different colleges for wrestling. Central Florida had um, a program down there where I was going to play football at UCF and wrestle, but then they got rid of the wrestling program. And the person I was wrestling in high school, 190 to 220 weight class, and they just signed a guy the year before I graduated to a scholarship, and the coach was telling me that I'd have to walk on or make the team before I could get a scholarship. And I wrestled in this thing called the Orlando Open in 1985, and I beat his star wrestler that I got passed over for because all he wanted to do was party. The coach said, and his head wasn't into wrestling anymore. But he's the one that got the full scholarship, and I was the one that was told, walk on and make the team. But then I entered the Orlando Open, and I got second place in that. Some guy that beat Jeff Blatnick, that was an Olympic caliber wrestler from like somewhere up in New York at the time, was down in Orlando, and he entered a tournament, and he won the tournament. And I didn't know that. And I only started wrestling like my sophomore year in high school, freestyle wrestling. So I wrestled 3 years in high school, and I was all city, all state, and I got third place in 1983 state championships.
Okay. So now around that time, is that so you had an amateur then no holds barred came across around.
Uh, I was wrestling up for uh, Southern Championship Wrestling for Jerry Blackwell up in Atlanta, Georgia, Marietta.
Okay.
And Joe Pedicino was one of the ring announcers, and him and Gordon Soley had like a weekly wrestling show that they would show all the different territories and stuff like that. And Joe Pedicino came up to me and said, "Hey, they're looking for you to have a part in No Holds Barred, a big motion picture with Hulk Hogan, and they want you to have a big fight scene in it." He goes, "Are you interested?" And I said, "Yeah, I'd love to do it." So Titan Sports called me up, Pat Patterson, and said, "Hey, we're going to send you a ticket." He goes, "This is Pat Patterson." I said, "Yeah, sure it is." Because you don't get a call from Pat Patterson, especially you're an independent guy, wrestling, the Georgia circuit, like Peach State Wrestling or Georgia Championship or Southern Championship. So I was doing all that stuff, and I was still wrestling championship wrestling in Florida, going and doing TV tapings and pretty much squash matches and stuff, just trying to make a name for myself and get as much experience as I could. So they called me up and they said, "No, we want you to be in the movie and we want you to do a fight scene, and we're going to send you a first class plane ticket to Atlanta, Georgia." And that's what they did. So that's where I met Stan Hansen and a bunch of the other guys. And I guess they saw me work there and they liked what they saw, and they signed me to a contract with WWE or
Wow.
WWF at the time.
Wow. So Hulk Hogan, was he a good guy? Is he still a
Oh
good
yeah, he was
guy?
great to me. I had a great time. We used to go out for lunches and dinners. We'd all eat on the set together and go to the gyms together. Tiny Lister, Zeus, and me, Stan Hansen. We'd go to Gold's Gym in Atlanta, Georgia. A friend of mine, Chip Smith, owned it at the time, and he would let us work out there for free. And that's the same gym that Lex Luger and Sting bought Steve Borden a few years after No Holds Barred was done. So I knew Chip for a long time. I also had Ray Lloyd Glacier. I got him a part in the movie. He went to school at Valdosta State, and we were very good friends down there. I was living down there, and I got Ray in the wrestling business at that time.
So, what's the story behind the creation of Sunny Beach? How did Sunny Beach come around?
Well, first I was Sandy Beach.
Right?
They had me in WWF at Sandy Beach, and I wrestled at Sandy Beach down in Florida and Georgia and stuff, and then Alabama, the little circus down there. And when I went to WWF, there was a DJ down in Tampa, Florida. He was calling himself Sandy Beach, and he was like a DJ. He was a bouncer. He was a bodybuilder. He was a jack of all trades and master of none. But he saw me on TV, and he says I was damaging his name. And he actually had the name trademark for entertainment for DJing. So I had to cease and assist that name. So I just changed Sandy to Sunny Beach, and nobody really knew the difference. I mean, I changed a couple, letters in the spelling, and that was it.
Okay. So
and I trademarked it.
You trademarked it, so now it's
yours.
Yours.
Now it's mine. Yeah.
Awesome, man. Hey, so I like Sunny Beach anyways, better than Sandy Beach. So hey.
Yeah, I like it better too.
All right. So, if you had to talk about your biggest influences in the business, could you share that with us?
Some of the biggest influences of the business, Stan Hansen would probably be one of them. Bruno Sammartino, another one. Bruno went to bat for me when I joined UWF, and he's the one that brought me into UWF because he knew me from WWF. So I knew Bruno for a lot of years. Georgianne Macropolis, she had a wrestling newsletter called Wrestling Chatterbox. And Georgianne, put a good word in with me, Bruno, and I would go out to dinner with Georgianne and with Bruno and, spend time with them when I wasn't wrestling and pick Bruno's brain about different things. And I'd ask him for pointers, and, I'd always ask him, how did you do it so long? How did you do it this way? The psychology about, the business, how to, have a good match, how to get heat. So he actually took the time out to share things with me that no other guys did. Stan Hansen's another guy. Nikolai Volkov was another dear friend. Jose Estrada, Jose Rivera, Conquistadors, they were good guys. I used to travel with them a lot. Still keep in touch with them today. Barry Horowitz, I used to ride with him a lot when I was with WWF. Haku, Hercules Hernandez, Greg Valentine. I actually was riding with Greg Valentine when I met my wife up here in New York.
Okay.
So he always still asks me, "You still mad at me because I introduced you to your wife?" I said, "No, Greg, we were just riding together." 36 awesome. Years later, I'm still married. So that's
there you go. Cool. Congratulations.
Thank you.
My wife and I just celebrated 32. So.
Oh, congratulations.
Thanks, man. Thanks. So.
To keep marriage is give and take. You got to give and take, and 100%. If you could do that and you're compatible with your partner, then that's all that counts.
100% agreed. Give and take for sure. So who are some of your toughest opponents in your career?
Well, Mick Foley was a pretty tough opponent when he was. We were coming up, about the same time, parallel careers and stuff. We both weren't really getting anywhere too quick, and we started doing an independent scene, and we used to have some really brutal matches with each other. That was before hardcore was hardcore. And we were fighting in parking lots and all over gyms, up and down bleachers and tables, chairs, surfboards, you name it. We were using anything we could. And we had a very good following and response up and down the East Coast. And then when we were the UWF, we feuded a little bit there for Herb Abrams. And we were in Beach Brawl, where me and Steve Ray, Wet and Wild, took on him and Bob Orton Jr. And we won the first Beach Brawl, the first pay-per-view UWF had down in Manatee Civic Center down in Florida. And then he was a tough opponent. Kamala, another tough opponent. I wrestled him a lot.
That boy's huge.
Some of the guys in I wrestled Bruiser Brody at Southern Championship a few times, Abdul the Butcher, tons of different guys. I mean, I probably wrestled almost every big killer heel, King Kong Bundy, Bam Bam Bigelow, Andre the Giant. When I went to Japan, All Japan Pro Wrestling, I wrestled Stan over there. I had the last match for the Dynamite Kid over at Budokan Hall. Me and Johnny Ace tagged against Dynamite Kid and Johnny Smith. So, I mean, I got to travel the world. I got to wrestle with some of the best wrestlers in the world. And I befriended a lot of, wrestlers. I still have friendships today. Stan Hansen comes to my house, stays with me and my family every time he comes, him and his wife to New York. So, I mean, just like family. He lives out in Grand Junction, Colorado. So I owe him a visit. I got to go out there sometime this year, early spring, and go visit him. So, I mean, it's really cool. When I go to Puerto Rico, I see Jose Rivera, Jose Estrada. Down in Florida, Beefcake and the guys down there, Jimmy Hart. And, I haven't seen Hogan in a while. He's been pretty busy promoting stuff and his his beat shop and stuff. But I get to see a lot of guys at these autograph signings and card shows and stuff like that. So it's pretty cool to see the guys. And we try to go out to dinner or try to hang out. And Tony Atlas, another good friend in the business.
Awesome. Yeah, I had a chance. I was in St. Augustine in June at the WrestleCon convention, and I got to sit and talk with Jimmy Hart.
Yeah.
That was pretty cool. Tatanka, it was his birthday, so we celebrated his birthday. That was
Nice.
his wife was amazing, and I tell everybody, I paid to see Sting. I got his autograph, and I got a picture with him.
Very cool.
And that took 3.5 hours, right? And the more, but and that was great. Sting is my all-time idol. I love Sting. He's one of my favorites, and so that was worth it, right? And but just to sit there and chit chat with Jimmy Hart and Tatanka and all those guys that just meant the world to me. Just that they're such great people.
That's a good thing, when you retire from wrestling and then you get a chance to meet the fans that paid your bills and that gave you a living all these years and stuff. It's good to give a payback and to reach out to them and support them now. And when they come out and pay their hard-earned money to buy a picture from you or take a picture with you or buy a piece of merchandise from me, you got the right thing for them, and take the extra time. It doesn't cost anything to be nice to somebody. And I tell guys that all the time. So pay it forward.
Pay it forward. Yep. Brotherhood, right? Brotherhood, paying it
The
forward.
thing about the St. Augustine wrestling show, though, is I grew up in Jacksonville, Florida, and the promoter, Bate, knows that I'm from there. And he refuses to bring me in for some reason. And I have a very big following down in Jacksonville. And I know I could draw a nice crowd there. But he, I don't know, for some reason, he even went to my high school. He graduated a few years after me. But
nice.
I think next time I see him, I'm going to have to smack him around a little bit and knock some sense into him.
So I hear the name Herb Abrams from UWF. Right. And you talked about Herb Abrams himself and then teaming up with Stevie Ray and Wet and Wild, all that experience. From what I hear from all the other interviews I watched from you, Herb Abrams seems to be one of your closest friends or something like that.
He was a very good friend of mine. He brought me into the UWF and he trusted me and he knew I wasn't like all these other guys looking to hit him up for money or, go party with him. I wasn't a partier. I'm a family man. So, he trusted me and he trusted me to help him, book some of the shows and to help with some of the finishes and stuff like that. Brian Blair was another guy that he trusted and Brian did a lot for Herb. A lot of guys, they're not here. Bruno Sammartino and Captain Lou, John Tolis, these were, seasoned veterans, that have, paid their dues and, he had a good team around him, but he just squandered everything and he just, his demons kind of got to him, partying a lot. And, a lot of the stories you hear about Herb are true, about partying, drinking, cocaine, partying with hookers and stuff like that. I'm not going to sugarcoat anything. It was true, but I'm not one to judge another person. What he did on his own time, it was Herb time. It wasn't my time. He wasn't taking any money out of my pocket or costing me anything. But he had the resources and the assets where he could have really succeeded and done something really special. He had Sports Channel America. He had a major network that was signed a contract with him. He was on a nice television show and he had good people around him to guide him and he had all the talent wanted to work for him. So I mean he had plenty of talent. Andre the Giant came in and Vince got him right back over there. Sid Vicious came in and Vince took him back. So all these guys that he had, major guys, and he just kind of did it to himself. He had to be accountable for his own actions, and in the end, it cost him his life. he had some underlying health issues with his heart and stuff. And I guess when you party like that, it's only a matter of time before your ticker goes out.
Right.
And
So
that's exactly what happened to him.
so you mentioned the name Andre the Giant.
Right.
So I read something, so I hope you can debunk it or tell the story. Was there a moment where you tried to outdrink Andre the Giant? Drinking,
There was never a moment where I could ever think as a rational man outdrink Andre the Giant. His stories are legendary. His drinking habits were legendary. But he got me over in Japan one time. We were in between flights. I think we were flying from Tokyo or Narita to Sapporo. Like it was like a 3 or 4 hour flight, and the flight got delayed. And he goes, "Boss, come drink, have a drink with me." He calls everybody boss. I said, "Okay, boss." So I go there, and I'm not a big drinker, and everybody knows that. So I had a couple of beers with him, and he's drinking beer at 11 o'clock in the morning, and I had like two or three. He's had like a 6 pack. I had two more, maybe I had five or six. He's had like a case now. He's just warming up, and he paid for everything. He wouldn't let me pay for nothing. But after I had like 8 to 10 beers, I was a little buzzed. I was a little drunk.
right.
So, and I was worried about missing my flight. So I was like, boss, I can't really drink a lot. So um, it was fun. I mean, I got a little buzzed, and thank God that we had a layover and a flight delay, and we were off that day. Because if I had to wrestle that night, I would have probably been in trouble. We That was one of my Andre stories. He got me drunk, and they were all laughing. Why you get him drunk, boss? He was laughing. He thought it was the funniest thing. But if he liked you, he would drink with you and go eat with you, and he'd look out for you.
Awesome.
I mean, Andre was a special person.
Awesome. So you broke into WWF against Glacier in 1988, right? So can you explain that match, how that match went, how it felt to be in it with a friend?
Well, I didn't wrestle against Glacier in the WWF. He wasn't there yet. I,
Okay.
I helped him get in the movie as an extra for No Holds
Okay.
Barred. And I helped him get into the wrestling business for Peach State Wrestling with a guy, Ben Masters,
Okay.
down in Cordele, Georgia, Americus, Georgia, where him and a guy, R.D. Swain, became the Blazers. They both played football at Valdosta State, and they did very well for themselves regionally. Peach State, Southern Championship. Ray got a nice little push with the WCW when Eric Bischoff was there, and Diamond Dallas Page as Glacier. When he went against Mortis and that whole like Mortal Kombat type gimmick, karate guy and the villains and all that. So he had a good 2-3 year run with the WCW,
Okay.
and we still keep in touch. He comes over, and we hang out when he comes to New York, and he lives down in Orlando, and try to hang out with him when we're down there, or go to Disney. We try to hook up for dinner or breakfast or lunch or whatever time allowing.
Now, well, your time in WWF, was that as enhanced to put over the big stars, or
Pretty much, yeah. I was an enhancement talent, WWF. I got to do a lot of house shows, which is really cool, for about 8 months. From 88 to like 2000, I was there. I mean, 88 to, I'm sorry, 88 to 90, around 90. And then I went overseas a couple of times with them to Europe and stuff. London Arena, me and Nikolai Volkov tagged against a couple of people over there. Then they sent me up to Calgary. I was up there for Stampede Wrestling with Stu Hart. So I got to travel around a lot, and they took care of me. And I wrestled a couple of little other shows around like Connecticut or New York, or somebody didn't show up or they needed an extra guy. They would call me up, hey, could you work this or do that and do this? So, I worked on and off, up to about 90, 91, I'd say, from 88 to 91 with the WWF.
how did they treat you guys as the enhancement as like rock stars, like they treated their big guys, or
Well, the
you know?
thing was, like, I would work house shows and stuff, so there was no difference really. I put them over, but they would let me work. It wasn't like I was getting squashed or beat down or nothing like that. And if I did put somebody over, it wasn't like I would just lay down or nothing. They would let me work, and I'd have some moves and stuff. And um, it was just a different way back then. It wasn't like a squash match where they'd send King Kong Bundy out there and he'd pick you up, body slam you, and squash you, and just splash you, and you're done. I mean, if they wanted me to, I would do it. I mean, I knew my job, I knew my role. I didn't have any, hidden agendas, or I didn't have any ego. I looked at it as a job. And, the guys would tell me, it's not how much money you make, it's how much money you save in this business. All the old timers. Nikolai Volkov told me that. Stan Hansen told me that. Johnny Walker, Wrestling 2, told me that. So, I mean, I would listen to all the old timers. I respected them. And, that's, how you did it in the old days. Now nobody pays dues. I used to have to set up the ring, take the ring down, buy the boys beer for after the matches, drive them from town to town. It was a whole different thing back then when I started out in mid '80s. It was still territories and still respect for the older generation.
Right.
Now, guys, if you have $1 million body, or if you go through a wrestling school, or if you're related to somebody, you get it pushed and put over.
You wrestled on the card, same card as Hulk Hogan did once or twice,
Many,
or
many times.
okay.
We used to do 3 shows a night with WWF when I was there, and Hogan was a champion. Ultimate Warrior was Intercontinental, and Demolition was a tag team. And if you were on a card like that, you were making big money. Like I was on a couple of weeks at a time. I'd be on you'd go on like 11 days on, 3 days off, 2 weeks on, 3 days off. So a couple of times I had like a whole month run with them. I'd be wrestling like Scott Casey or Lanny Poffo on the undercard or something. And we'd make big money. Madison Square Garden, Denver Arena, Rosemont Horizon, Chicago, Boston Garden, and you're selling out these places, 25, 30,000 people. And, we used to get a percentage of the gate. So, going from making $400 or $500 a night to 4 or 5 thousand a night was huge. Some months, I'd make, 15,000. Some months I make 30,000, and after, taxes and everything else. So, it would go up and down. Sometimes you'd be at a high school arena, you make $300-400 a night, but they were selling out high schools, 1,500, 2,000 people. And they would only have like 5 or 6 matches instead of 7 or 8 matches that they would have at the big arenas.
Right. Wow. And so you had some experience in Dark Side of the Ring, like I think
Yes.
season 2, correct?
Yeah, it was season 2, Cocaine and Cowboys, the Herb Abrams story. They came to my house. They came to my office where I have a security company up here in New York, and they flew Steve Ray in to give an interview and stuff. And Herb's cousin, Steve Simon, did an interview, but they didn't publish it on the tape. I don't know why, but it was pretty good. And, they asked me about Herb, about, our relationship. Herb would come over to my house Sunday dinners. We'd invite him over. Um, he was just a lonely guy a lot of times. He was by himself up here in New York. He moved from California to the East Coast. His mom's from here. He's originally from New York anyway. He's got a sister, Hildy, and stuff, a younger sister. So Herb, he tried really hard, and he just didn't finish the game, I guess.
So fans, how important were fans to Sunny Beach? And
No, they
wrestling?
were everything. Without the fans, you're nothing. If you didn't have the fan support, or the fans behind you, like to support you in the matches, or like you, or fan mail, or fan clubs, or buying your merchandise, it just wasn't there, But um, I was lucky. I had a pretty good fan base while I was wrestling.
So, did you have any funny interactions with fans that you could share with us?
Um, Not too many funny things. I mean, a couple of times, they'd see us like eating at restaurants, and, like girls, they'd be shy, or at the bar, they'd come up to you and they'd see you and they want you to buy them a drink, or, all that stuff. Some of that stuff was pretty cool. And like going sometimes like to the car dealerships, like at the airports, some of the people would know that we'd wrestle, and they'd give us deals for the rent a cars and stuff, or stewardess would give us like the little liquor bottles, like the little miniatures on the planes and stuff, where they'd bump us up to first class, because we were always, we were like rock stars back then. Back in the '80s, wrestling was like huge, and everybody knew and saw us on TV. So even if you were enhanced talent, they'd say, "Hey, that's Sandy Beach," or I saw him on TV last week, or they would think I was somebody else. "Oh, he's a big wrestler," because I was just as big as everybody else, or bigger. I was 6'4" and 280 pounds, so I was pretty good shape back then.
Yeah. So, Kevin Sullivan, you mentioned you rode with Kevin Sullivan and mentioned a bunch of other guys. Is there any funny car ride stories, hotel stories, like ribbing each other or stuff like, or didn't that happen back in the 80s?
There was so much ribbing back then. The British Bulldogs were some of the biggest ribbers. They used to drop Halcyon sleeping pills in people's drinks and watch them pass out. Then they would shave their eyebrows. They'd get a little razor and bzzz, little electric razors and shave their eyebrows off. And you wake up and you wouldn't have any eyebrows or mustache, or they'd cut your hair. If you had a ponytail, they'd get scissors and cut your ponytail off. They tortured Terry Taylor when he was the Red Rooster. Terry was a immaculate dresser. He used to wear, $500-$600 suits back then, to the towns. And he was just a sharp dressed guy and, always took care of himself. They used to cut his coat jacket, like right in the seams, and he put on his coat and the coat would fall off him, or he put on his pants and the pants would fall off. Or they used to do some sick stuff too. Like they'd poop in his wrestling boots or other guys' boots and stuff, and you put your boot on and there was a mud shark in your boot, and it was some nasty stuff they would do too.
So what advice would you give to an up and coming wrestler today, trying to get into the independent scene? Or
just practice your craft, pay your dues, practice like anything else. Learn the art of wrestling and respect the profession. Talk to a lot of old timers, watch a lot of matches, old school matches. All this stuff now with high spots and all these false finishes, where you get like 20 false finishes and everything else in one match, it doesn't mean anything. Learn the psychology and just practice.
learn the craft. You mentioned pay attention to the legends in the back. I think I go to independent scene down here in Panama City Beach. Extreme
Right.
Impact Wrestling, ran by John Saxon and Adrian Whisper and those guys. Paying it dues, paying it forward. Listen to the legend. They brought Chase Stevens in last month, and that question was, what do you do? And I think it's so important that we would pay attention to what you guys have to say. At the wrestling convention, I had Austin Aries at my table, and there was a kid that came up, and it was just awesome to sit back and watch this kid ask Austin Aries for advice and how he thought his match was, and just that was one guy that paid attention. So I think it's important that they should pay attention.
Well, it's very important. Back in the old days, all the wrestlers would go out there and watch everybody's matches. From Ric Flair, Harley Race, the Briscoe brothers, they would sit in the back and they would critique the match, see what you did, what moves they were going to do, or they wouldn't do the same moves that you were doing, or and they would give you advice. If you had a good match, you had a shitty match, they would let you know either way. And then I would always ask people, hey, could you watch my match and tell me what I did right, what I did wrong, how could I do something better? Did I make the crowd pop at the right time? Did we bring them up, bring them back down? It's like dancing. You're leading and then you're following and then you're leading, and you're telling a story. And that's the main thing. You want to tell a story and you want to be believable. That's the main thing. And you got to protect the business. I mean, everybody says kayfabe's over and all that stuff, but I was brought up, you always protected the business.
Yeah. So in your time at WWF, were you ever asked to do something ridiculous, like a spot or anything like that?
Not really, no. I never did nothing ridiculous. They were very professional. They would tell you, your finishes and who you're working with, and you have a booking sheet, and you'd see who you were working with the whole week, what towns you were in. You'd grab a couple other guys and ride together so you could save money on the rental cars, or you split in the hotel rooms. You get a double room instead of a single bed, or some, like down south, they used to have rooms where they had 3 beds in it. So you get 3 guys in a room and you save a lot of money. And back then the rooms were only, $60-$80 a night, and that 3 ways, you're only paying like $25-$30 a piece. Same thing with the rental cars. You could get a rental car back then for like $30 or $40 a day, unlimited miles. And, everybody paying $10-$20 with gas and everything. It worked out pretty good.
Awesome. So who was your biggest, like most that you still talk to today, who's that guy that you go to, your best friend in the business?
Believe it or not, Stan Hansen's one of my better friends in the business. Ray Lloyd Glacier. I still talk to Jose Estrada, Jose Rivera. Haku is a good friend. Barry Horowitz. I still got a lot of good friends. Tony Atlas. So, we're losing more friends than we have probably left now. I looked at a couple of cards I was on, back when I was with the WWF, and so many guys are gone now, like Junkyard Dog, Dino Bravo, Outlaw Ron Bass, Andre the Giant, Rick Rude, the Road Warriors. I mean, the British Bulldogs, Jim Neidhart. I looked at this one card, and probably out of 14 guys that were on the card, there's only 4 guys left. Ultimate Warrior's gone, Randy Savage, Lanny Poffo. I'm like, oh my God, the Rockers are still here, Marty and Sean. They were on the card. But then, the rest of the guys, it was like, oh my God, Bad News Brown or Bad News Allen. So many guys that were on these cards. It's King Kong Bundy, Harley Race. It's just the list goes on and on and on.
Yeah. So, did you have a favorite gimmick or least favorite gimmick? Not that you had to do, but that was in the WWE or UWF when you were in the business.
Well, I got to wrestle the Wrestling Bear once down in Peach State Championship Wrestling. Was on a card with, I think, Tommy Rich, Ted Oates wrestling too. They brought the Bear in. And I had the opening match. The loser of the opening match had to wrestle the Bear for the main event. And this was like a Russian bear. I don't know. It was like a big bear. It was like 350 pounds. And it had a muzzle on. And I think most of its teeth were out anyway. And it was declawed. So it was like a novelty act back then. And now they don't allow it because it's inhumane for animals and stuff. But after the bear, I had to let the bear go over and beat me. I had to put the bear over. And you would be surprised how strong these bears really are. They're all muscle. And this bear smelled so bad because it never had a bath, I don't think. They lay in, they poop and pee, and, the owner didn't really take very good care of the bear's hygiene. So I had to get with a smelly bear, big smelly bear. And after the bear won, they would give it a 2-liter bottle of Pepsi. Then they would sit him on the ring, and the bear would turn it up and drink it because it loved the sugar.
Yeah.
So that was the reward for wrestling like 10 minutes. And it was pretty funny. I mean, I got to say that I wrestled a bear, and somebody, I don't know if it's on YouTube, but somebody has a tapes of that somewhere. I don't know where, but I would love to get my hand on that.
I'll look up Sunny Beach, but wrestling a bear. I have to do that right after this. So if I find it, I'll send it to you.
I mean, some of the matches like in Japan too, like I get some of them. Like I've got like the Dynamite Kids last match, and I have a few matches from Japan. But I had a real good match, me and the Patriot against Stan Hansen and Johnny Ace over there for one of the Bruiser Brody Memorial shows, and had a real good match, me and Johnny Ace against Masawa Kawada. I had a good tape of that a while back, and then another match with Andre the Giant and Giant Baba, me and Johnny Ace. So I mean, there's some good and Kamala and Abdul the Butcher. Me and Johnny Ace were in a tag league in '91. So I know there's some matches out there and they were televised and stuff, but it's hard to find them over here in the United States when they were made in Japan. And I guess All Japan Pro Wrestling has the the copyrights and everything, all that stuff. And I don't know if they're releasing a lot more stuff nowadays, and you can see it on YouTube, but there's some of the stuff that I haven't seen in quite a while.
Wow. You mentioned Bruiser Brody. So
Yeah.
and Bruiser Brody Memorial, are you familiar with Herb Simmons then?
I am not familiar with Herb Simmons.
He runs the promotion in St. Louis, SICW.
Okay.
He brought on I think it's Bruiser Brody's wife, Barbara Goodish. I think.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Got a son too.
So that was a good that was a amazing conversation that I was able to have with her all about.
Yeah, I got to work with Frank a couple of times when he was wrestling with Southern Championship Wrestling for Jerry Blackwell. Me and the guy Doug Summers, Pretty Boy Doug Summers, tagged against him and Tommy Rich in a tag team match. And I wrestled Brody myself in a singles match, and He just beat the living crap out of me. I had a big golf ball size egg welt on my middle of my forehead where he kicked me so hard with his boots. And then after the match, he started throwing, and we wrestled at a place called Miss Kitty's Honky Tonk up in Marietta, Georgia. We were doing the TV tapings out there. He started taking long neck cases of Budweiser and throwing them in the ring, and bottles and glasses going everywhere. And I'm trying to roll out of the ring, and he's like barking, roof, 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 and I'm like, holy shit, what did I get myself into? I said, I hope I didn't piss him off. And then when I got back there, oh, thank you, good match, and I'm like, good match, you beat the shit out of me. That's a good match. And then one guy comes out wrestling too, goes, oh, he just got back from Japan. He was working a little stiff on you. And Dick Slater goes, I would have shot on him. And I'm like, I said, I'd have got killed. I said, Mama didn't raise no fool, and Dickie's like, well, look at that big old knot on your head. He goes, I'd give him a receipt. And, he was like trying to, pump me up to go mess with Frank. And I said, Dickie, I said, I'm not retarded. I said, I'm not a fool. I said, I already got beat up once today. I'm not going to go get beat up again. He started laughing because I was just,
I looked at some names that you wrestled, and I'm like, you said it, Bruiser Brody. Frank he's massive. He looks mean as heck, and I do not want to. No, I think you did the right decision and not shoot on him. So.
I mean, some of the stories that Stan Hansen told me about them growing up and going to college together at West Texas State and playing football, and then over in Japan together, touring over there in Puerto Rico and everything, and. It's just sad the way his life ended. He didn't deserve to die like that in Puerto Rico. And very, very, very sad.
Yeah. So I got a list of names that when I was doing some research. So it's just going to be like a lightning round.
Sure.
Abdul the Butcher, AG, over in Japan. What was the experience like there?
I wrestled Abdullah in Japan a couple of times. I wrestled him over here in the States with Peach State and Southern Championship. Wrestled him in a lot of battle royals and stuff. Always, a tough night. I mean, Abdul, the wild man from the Sudan, that was his gimmick. He was one of those monster heels, so he was, that's how he made his money. He made millions of dollars with that gimmick.
So we got somebody pumping in here. He says, John Redondo says, hey, Sonny from Spain. I have so many questions, but first, how crazy is Mick Foley, a.k.a. Cactus Jack, on planning spots, laughing?
Mick Foley, I mean, we wrestled probably over 80 to 100 times throughout our careers together, all over Brooklyn, Florida. I mean, you name it, we wrestled a lot. And he was great. He would let me do whatever I wanted to him. He would do anything he wanted. He would try new stuff out on me. I'd try stuff out on him. And it was like a give and take relationship. We tried to give the fans the best matches. And, and Mick really cared about the matches and, looking good and dropping the elbow off, the top ring post and onto the floor, or he'd backdrop me on the floor, or he'd tell me to backdrop him on the floor, or go bring him through a table, or go up to the top of the bleachers in a high school gym, and he'd roll down the whole flight of, hit me, and then he'd take a bump and he'd roll down every step on the bleachers, and I was like, Nick, there's only 400 people here. Don't get hurt. Oh, we got to, I want to, give them their money's worth. I said, okay. I said, here it comes.
Wow.
But we wrestled a lot together, and I enjoyed, wrestling with Mick very much. And he would plan out his matches, and he really cared about his matches. And he still does today. I mean, look at that match that him and Undertaker had, Hell in the Cell match, I don't think I could have done that, to go through jump off the top of the ring like he did and everything else. That's crazy. But he was crazy, and I saw tapes of him as a kid jumping off houses and stuff on the mattresses.
Right. Nothing fake about what you guys do, for sure.
No, the pain is real. Trust me.
Absolutely. So, John, make sure you subscribe to or follow the YouTube channel. Thank you for the question. He has another one. How was wrestling in Venezuela with Volkov?
I went to Venezuela with John Arizzi. Worldwide wrestling superstars. I think. Well, John had a big tour over there, and I forgot who I wrestled against over there. But he had a lot of big name people over there. He had Doink the Clown, he had Tonga Kid, he had Hercules. Nikolai was there. who else was there? I don't know. I honestly can't remember who I wrestled over there. I think he had Conan from AAA wrestling there. Um, Rey Mysterio Jr., Sabu, I think, was there. Um, Matt Bourne, Doink. We had a really, really good tour over there. We wrestled about 4 matches over there, a lot of arenas and stuff. But Venezuela was really cool going to see that country and wrestling there too. And we also went on a trip with Kevin Sullivan back when he was still married to Nancy at the time, woman. We went to the Philippines and Singapore on another overseas tour. We had Warlord, Barbarian, Jake the Snake Roberts, Diamond Dallas Page, myself, Pat Tanaka, the Power Twins, Public Enemy was there. Um, really, the Mexican Midgets, Rey Mysterio and Conan were at those matches too. So it was a really, really good tour.
Okay. Lightning round. Barry Horowitz.
Barry Horowitz, a legend in his own mind. Mr. Subway, I like to call him. I don't know anybody who has more visits to Subway sandwich shop than Barry Horowitz, except the guy Jared, who's in prison right now. But they should have definitely tapped Barry Horowitz to be their representative, to represent that brand, because he loves Subway.
Cowboy Bob Orton.
Cowboy Bob Orton, I mean, third generation wrestler. I mean, his father, Bob, and now Randy. I mean, it's like this guy's just another sponge of knowledge. He was so impressive in wrestling. He was at all the territories, St. Louis, he was Florida Championship, Georgia Championship, WWF, back the first WrestleMania, him and Piper and everybody. So, I mean, just have him on the same card as you or wrestling against him was just a pleasure and a learning experience. He was great. Still is.
I seen a picture of you. I'm not sure if it was you and your son or it was you as a baby with Iron Sheik.
That was my son as a baby.
Okay.
Sheik used to come to my house a lot. I used to let him stay with me when we do our independent shows in Brooklyn or autograph signings. And he was a great man. This was before his daughter was murdered down in Georgia. After she got murdered, Sheik changed a lot. He got very bitter. He told me the story that when he was in court, he had a razor blade under his tongue and he was going to slit the guy's throat in the courtroom. And his wife and then pleaded with him not to do it. And, he was the real deal. He was the Shah of Iran's bodyguard before he got into wrestling. He was on the Olympic team for Iran. I think he came and wrestled in the United States or, when he defected or came over here. He was on the 68 Olympics, and I think he was in the 72 Olympics when he showed me pictures with Vasily Alexia, the Russian strongman. He was very good friends with him. He just went to Vern Gagne's school over in Minneapolis, and when Chris Taylor and Sergeant Slaughter and all those guys were attending school there and stuff. I mean, Sheik was the real deal, and I learned a lot from him.
So I read somewhere that you, that you're good friends with Stu Hart and all the Hart family. And how about it's Chris Benoit? Was he part of the business back when you were there?
Yeah, when I was up in Stampede, Calgary, I got to wrestle Chris for the Commonwealth Championship up there. He was a champion. Okay. And we went about 30 minutes up there in Edmonton, his hometown. We had a great match, like a 5-star match. They said it was one of the best matches he had in a long time up there. And I just didn't like Calgary. It was just too cold for me. I mean, it was like 20, 30 degrees below zero. I was up there for like 5 weeks. The buses and vans were breaking down all the time. I was staying at this dump hotel called the York Hotel in Calgary. And I was about 2 or 3 blocks away from BJ's Gym, which is one of the, Hart's family owns, one of the husbands of one of the daughters owns a gym there. So I would work out during the day. The Bulldogs were in there working out, and whoever else was wrestling up there. Don Morocco was up there when I came up. Randy Colley, one of the Moondogs. Muck and Singh or Bastion Booger. Mike Shaw was there at the time. Lethal Larry Cameron. The Power Twins were there. Brian Pillman came back up there. He was with, I think, Bruce Hart. They were called Bad Company, and they were going to do a program with me and Brian. But the pay wasn't what they guaranteed me up there, and I kind of went home early because I just hated the cold. Being a Florida boy from Jacksonville, Florida, and you're used to 90, 100-degree weather, and you're 30 below zero over there. And you come up to Canada with a suitcase. You didn't have any winter clothes. I had a pair of long johns with me, and that did nothing. So then I had to go to Burlington Coat Factory when I got up there. I bought winter jackets. I bought gloves. I bought scarves. I bought knit hats. I spent all my money I came up there with for winter clothing, and I stayed 3 more weeks, and then I went home.
Wow, no.
It was terrible.
I hear what you're saying because in about 38 days, I leave the 95-degree weather in Florida, go to Michigan where my dad said it was 46 this morning. I'm like, I don't want to even go there. That's like,
Yeah, it was like 52 when I woke up this morning here on Long Island, but it got up in the 70s this afternoon, so I was good.
We got another question from John.
Yeah.
Sonny, I know you wrestled in All Japan, but with Johnny Ace. But the funny story is Ace telling the iconic story of Nippon Budokan is hilarious.
I don't know the historic story of Nippon Budokan.
Okay, I don't either.
I don't think I ever heard of that story, but
so
if Johnny was telling his story, it was probably funny.
So what's your experiences with Macho Man?
He was very nice to me. I got along great with the Poffos. I knew Angelo Poffo and Lanny and Randy. They used to live on Staten Island, Randy did, and Lanny, when we were working with the WWF. And then they all moved down to Florida. But Angelo Poffo, pretty much controlled their money and stuff. I mean, he always told them to save. And his name in the business was the Miser. And that was for good reason because he made Randy and Lanny save their money, and they did very well for themselves in the business. Both of them took good care of me. I used to travel with Lanny a lot. I would travel, whenever Randy would always look out for me. One time, this is a funny story. Bret Hart, when they had the Hart Foundation, they wear the pink and white and black trunks and stuff. One time I was wearing a hot, pink, just pink, I guess it was spandex with the white boots. And everybody knew I was Sandy Beach. But Brett got all pissed off and they made me change my pink trunks because he says, "Oh, that's my gimmick. I wear pink." And then Randy said to him, and the whole locker room laughed. He goes, "Hey, Brett," he goes, "I never know you had to have a trademark on a color." Everybody kind of laughed at him because he was being a little bit petty, but I saw that it touched a nerve in him. So I said, "No problem, I'll change." I didn't put him over or nothing. I said, "Oh, I didn't know, that, you were wearing." He goes, "Well, that's my color, pink." I said, "Oh, okay." I said, "Okay, I'll change." So I put on these lemon lime green ones and went out there in those. And same thing. And it was, I got beat. Everybody knew I wasn't the Hart Foundation, but I wore the lime green instead. But he got a little upset because I was going to wear pink out there.
Nice. So
But
who was the
for me though?
who was the one star that you beat that you're like proud of? Oh yeah, I got this guy.
Believe it or not, King Kong Bundy did the honors for me a couple of times at Staten Island, and we did a couple of big shows over there. And I was working for a guy named Tommy D, and Tommy D would bring in myself, Typhoon or Earthquake. He had me wrestling, like Beefcake was there, Demolition. He would bring in a lot of big names, Tito Santana, and he would put me, with all the big stars, and I'd be in the main event or semi-main event with all these guys, and I beat them. I beat Kamala once. Me and Paul Orndorff tagged against Kamala 1 and 2, and we beat them. So I mean, I got to wrestle with a lot of big name guys, and a couple of them, Bundy. He didn't have to put me over. He was in the first WrestleMania. He put me over big. Tony Atlas has put me over before. It's really cool. Ox Baker put me over before when I was first starting out in Florida. Adrian Street. I mean, there was a lot of guys, that did put me over so I could get a little bit higher up that ladder and be a mid card guy instead of on the bottom. So, I mean, Barry Horowitz, we worked together a few times. I put him over, he puts me over. Conquistadors, Estrada Rivera, even Afa. I mean, I wrestled him, and double DQ, and so the old timers, they knew what it was like to draw money and to get guys over so you could come back and draw more money. So people want to see you. It's, oh, he almost beat him, or he pulled his tights, and maybe he'll get him next time, or a return match, or So the psychology that which they don't have too much of these days anymore.
So John has one last question. John, I'm sure that Sunny Beach could briefly discuss it. We've already talked about this. My final question: did you see or participate in Dark Side of the Ring of Herb Abram about UWF, and what did you see from Herb behind the scenes?
Well, I saw the good side and the bad side. The good side was Herb used to do a lot for charity that nobody knew about. He would go to children's hospitals. He would give away a lot of merchandise to handicapped children and Christmas parties. There was a big orphanage up here for kids in Long Island, and Herb came with me, myself, Herb, Iron Sheik, a couple other guys came out and gave out Christmas presents from UWF to these kids, water bottles, UWF T-shirts, hats, autograph pictures. So he would do a lot of stuff like that, and meet and greets and stuff for the kids, give out free tickets to a lot of the matches for different organizations and stuff. So that was the good side, and then the bad side, was, he didn't know when to turn off the partying. He wanted to party, and if he got depressed, he wanted to party. I think he was just a lonely guy, and he wanted some type of companionship. That's why he was with a lot of these girls and stuff, or he would go party or go out to the clubs and then, try to keep partying after the clubs would close and stuff like that. And he didn't have a lot of people like to watch him. If somebody was watching him or babysitting him when he was doing that, then he would have probably been okay. But, I was a family guy and I was home with my family, so I couldn't watch him 24 hours a day. But when he was around me, he knew to be on his best behavior, or at least wait till I left to do whatever he was doing. Because I was, a calming force for him and keep him on the straight and narrow.
I have two more names. I have to get these out before we close the show. So
Sure.
We must mention Dusty Rhodes and Big Vito.
Dusty Rhodes was the main reason why I started professional wrestling. He was my Mickey Mantle. He was my, the guy that I idolized to a fault. I got in trouble in 6th grade for jumping off of a desk and giving somebody a bionic elbow. And this is a true story. So I had to go to the principal's office and I had to apologize to the kid. And they go, where did you learn that? I said, Saturday morning, Dusty Rhodes. And the lady goes, Dusty Rhodes? He's still wrestling? And she was a fan of Dusty too. So she, made me go to detention and stuff, and I had to apologize to the kid and everything. So she said, no more wrestling in school. I said, okay. But I was ate up with him, and when I met him, I told him, I said, you're the reason why I got into business. And he was like, thank you. I appreciate that. That means a lot to me. He was very humble. And he was another guy that would take time out and help the young, guys and tell them about their matches and give people breaks and stuff like that. So, I have nothing but good memories of Dusty growing up as a kid. I think Cody Rhodes and Dustin Rhodes are doing great, and they were both great for the business. And, they both worked hard, and they've accomplished a lot, since their father passed. And, I know their dad's looking down on them from heaven, very happy where they're at in their lives right now.
I gotta tell you a story. You told a funny story. So my brother and I used to watch Saturday Night's Main Event back in like 89, 90s,
Right.
with Sid Vicious and Hulk Hogan and all those guys, And my mom told me never to let my brother, because my brother's like 12 years younger than me. So never let my brother into my room on a Saturday night to watch wrestling. I was like, okay, Mom, I got that. So one night I was watching wrestling, and I hear a knock on my door, and I come in, and I said, "What's up?" He goes, Can we watch wrestling?" I'm like, "Dude, man, you can't be in here. But can we watch wrestling?" I said, "All right, whatever, shush, get in here." And of course, Sid Vicious comes on, right? And
Right.
the phrase, "What's that? I smell? I smell a power bomb." He said that, so I picked up my brother in the power bomb position. I slammed him to the bed, but his feet kicked up and hit the ceiling light, and the
Broke it.
light fixture crashed to the ground right up on my mom and dad's room. Needless to say, I got in trouble, and my brother got away with, "Oh, you told me I could come in." I'm like, dude. So, but Yeah.
Well, that's the good part of being an older brother.
Yeah, absolutely, 100%. So
I got to try my moves on my little brother too, so that was pretty cool.
there you go. So we reached the hour mark, man, and I know that you want to go see those Jets get beat by the 49ers. I just checked, they were down by 14-7 or something like that.
Oh my goodness, not good.
Not good, but so can you just close the show? Tell people where they can find you. Are you doing anything? Are you just retired and enjoying life with the security system?
Well, I own a security guard company up here in New York. We're licensed in New York, New Jersey, Florida, and Texas. So we do a lot of stuff more than anywhere in New York, so to speak. So I have that, and I have a security training school where I teach security training, get guards licensed in New York State and stuff like that. I'm a general topics instructor with the state. So I've had my school for over 8 years now, and I've had my security company since I got out of wrestling in 2000. So this is going on my 25th year having my own company. And people could find me on Facebook, Rick Allen or Sunny Beach. I have a page for both. And I do some autograph signings here and there. I just did 80s WrestleCon with Stan Hansen, myself, Tony Atlas. Demolition was there, Tony Garea, Jake the Snake Roberts, Powers of Pain, Sergeant Slaughter. So for a guy named Tommy Fierro in New Jersey. He has a wrestling collector down there, and he does a lot of wrestling shows in New Jersey too. So Tommy's a really good guy, Tommy Fierro. And just doing stuff like that, locally, New York, doing some fundraisers, some meet and greets. No, that's about it.
Awesome. Huge Pop Wrestling Podcast fans, thank you for tuning in. Those that are tuned in and watching on YouTube, please subscribe to the YouTube channel. Helps us get more content. Thank you, Sunny Beach, for popping in.
My pleasure. Thank you.
I'm going to play a closing song, but don't go nowhere. I'd like to talk to you real quick.
Sure.
So, Huge Pop Wrestling Podcast, thank you so much for joining in. Catch us on Tuesday night as we recap Raw. Catch us on Thursday night as we have another interview with the indie guy from Orlando. But again, thanks for popping in on Huge Pop Wrestling Podcast, because we're Huge Pop Wrestling. We're always for life.